Alright, so roaming tier list. What is the best class to roam on? AKA the class that you get kills on, you survive on, and that actually is useful in more than just, you know, being a troll class, right? So this is this is the fundamental and the definitive tier list. There is nothing before this. There's nothing after this. This is the tier list. And if the balance changes, this is still, yeah. Okay, you're understanding the irony here, okay? So you get it. Like, this is an opinion. Anyways, so we're gonna ignore core classes because literally no one roams on core, and that's real. No one roams on core. Um, so Catalyst. Let's just start with Elementalist. Catalyst is at least A tier. You've got your power Catalyst build. You know, you've got the Scepter build. It's pretty good, but it's easily, you know, corrupted, easily focused with CC, and it's pretty weak to quantities, even if you run the Dagger Selly build. It's definitely good. I'll put it at top of A tier, but escaping, you know, it doesn't escape too well. I mean, Dagger has good escape, but it's got to be able to escape, and it has some escape. But let's get an S tier out first. Soul Beast. Soul Beast has stealth with the greatsword, and you know, they can blast with their pet thingy, the F3. They have mobility with the greatsword 3 as well. They have long range burst. They have Dolyak stance, so you can pretty much not even kill them every, what, 30 seconds? They've got get out of jail free cards left and right, and they've got tons of burst. This is your ideal roaming class. This is top tier. And then you've got your unideal roaming class. You've got Scourge. Scourge is, its mechanic requires you to hit things in like one place, like the shades, they stay in place. Everyone's moving all over the place, so the shades are irrelevant, and it has no like active defenses. It's all like overtime sustain. It's squishy, easy to focus. It requires support. So in roaming situations, when you're outnumbered, you just die. So it has no escape. It has very bad kill potential because you can't chase anyone and it's hard to land anything. This is the worst. And then let's get out another you got Renegade. Let's put out Renegade. So I'm gonna put it in B for now, but let's just look at Renegade. So you usually play Selly Renegade, or you could play Power Renegade, but you're running Shortbow. Shortbow is range damage, which means it's really easy to get kills on. It's very rewarding to play. But Renegade is a Revenant, which means it's easy to CC lock down, so it dies while outnumbered pretty easily. So escape, not really there. It does have the Shiro port, but that's not really too reliable. It does have stability though on the Jalis, but that's reliant on, you know, a single pulsing thing. When you're outnumbered, you kind of die on a Renegade, so not really the best. But it is really rewarding because you can get kills very easily. But I will, instead of putting it in A, I put it in B because it relies on projectiles. Almost entirely on projectiles, whereas Soul Beast does not rely on projectiles entirely. And while projectiles are very good in World versus World, there's also a lot of counter to projectile at the same time as a result. So Renegade is not the best. Too easily countered. But, you know, maybe like top of B tier. You know, it's pretty good. Let's get Firebrand in the mix. So Firebrand is extremely easy to focus, has almost no disengage, and while it does have a lot of CC, which is really good for its teammates, and it's great in group roaming where you don't necessarily have to disengage, that's not always going to be a situation that you can, you know, clearly create for yourself. So you're going to be outnumbered a lot of the time, and then you're just going to die. Like for example, we were just roaming, and as soon as the firebrand was out of position, we just focused them immediately. But when they're with their team, it was powerful. So it's like C or D. I mean, I love roaming as firebrand, but I have to admit it is really punishing. It's not rewarding. So it's like it's either C or D. But oh yeah, firebrand is way lower than renegade. This is like bottom of C tier or top of D tier. Like we'll put it there for now. And then let's get a necro in there. Let's put some reaper in there. So reaper has, you know, you're pretty much taking spectral walk and worm every single necro build. So you do have quite a bit of disengage. You're easy to focus regardless, but you have disengage. And in those situations where you disengage, it's a full disengage almost. And that's enough to help you survive. So that's actually really good. I'd say that's like B tier, the disengage. Now, the kill potential on Reaper is insane because you have chill. It's not immobilized, but you have chill, which helps you to not only for you to get on the target, but your teammates. And then, you know, extreme burst damage. This is like solo to group roaming. Like we're saying Firebrand is still okay because it's good in a group. But most situations, even if you're in a group roaming, it's like still you'd rather have like maybe a Tempest instead of a Firebrand, right? So, I mean, it depends. It's like 1 to 3 man roaming is what I'm prioritizing. Anything more than like 10 is pretty much Zerg comping. And anything like between 5 to 10 is like, I mean, it's like, what is it called? Like clouding or whatever. Like, you can't really think too much about that because it's generally not going to be an even fight anyways. So Reaper's got really good kill potential. It's rewarding, has good disengage, but it's not ranged. It does not have too much range damage. It does have the axe, but that's single target, which is still good. So it's like a little bit less than Renegade, to be honest. I'll put it below Renegade. If it's at the left, it's at the higher point of the tier. If it's at the right, it's lower tier. Yeah. Let's get an NG in here. So let's just do Mechanist. Mechanist is like, I'm just going to put in C for now, but it might be D even, because Mechanist has the mech, which is pretty easy for you to play around if you're not like getting like ganked. Like it's oppressive when you're getting ganked by like many mechs, but if the mech is getting ganked, the mech doesn't help them at all. If they're chasing someone down, the mech isn't great at chasing usually. And they've even nerfed it, so even if you are getting chased, it does less damage. So mech is really, yeah, it's pretty meh. It's not amazing. It's also easy to focus. So it has pretty much like no stun breaks because you don't have access to tool belt skills. And I think the shift signet is usually your only stun break. Usually. And if you use that to stun break and to get out of like a bad situation, you have to leave immediately. Even if you're running the trait that gives you the movement speed for it, you generally have to leave because that's your only stun break. You're really susceptible to CC. So it's like pretty bad. I'd say like bottom of C tier maybe. Spellbreaker. Full counter is pretty good. You have access to the defense trait line, which is now really good because it's a lot of Condi cleanse. So you're constantly cleansing conditions as a spellbreaker, and defense works even better with spellbreaker because you're using your burst skills so often. It's better than core. It's better than what's it called? Berserker, the defense trait line. And since defense trait line is really overpowered right now, it's really good. So Spellbreaker is really good. It survives because it has mobility. It has the full counter. It has Endure Pains or whatever. Balance stance. But it does lack ports. It lacks ports. And so even though it has good disengage, it doesn't have godlike disengage because It doesn't have stealth. You know, like if you're being trained as a spellbreaker, you're being trained. You don't ever stop being trained. So you've constantly got people on your tail, and you never shake them off unless they have no mobility. I mean, warrior's mobility is good, but you know, when you're being chased by a Deadeye, you don't get out. So it's like bottom of A tier maybe. Like it's a warrior, it's susceptible to blinds and being slow and not having ports and all that. But it is extremely good at roaming still. Like A tier is pretty good. Now a Mesmer. Virtuoso. Virtuoso is extremely tanky. You can survive a lot. The disengage is insane on Virtuoso. The block, the distort. Usually you want to have extra blocks on Virtuoso because you get value out of that. So the survivability is really good. But you do not get rewarded very well by playing Virtuoso. And for that, I may even put it bottom of B tier. Because for you to kill someone as a Virtuoso, they need to hit you. So you need to either be in a 1v1 or in like a 1v2. And even if you're in a 1v2, you attack someone and then they give you the blades. You use those blades and then they get pressured and then they disengage and that other person keeps attacking you and you have to swap targets because you don't have any chase potential. And also, if no one attacks you, period, you don't have any blade generation. So it's good, but it's way too counterplayable. And the counterplayable part of Virtuoso is that you can just never die to it. And that, it just feels bad because the whole point is to get kills, not to survive. You want both, but generally if you get kills but you die, it's still better than if you don't die and just never get kills. So I tend to think that aggressive builds are better than defensive ones because, I mean, yeah, you could just survive forever and then wait until your team arrives and then get kills. I mean, that, yeah, if you want to play that way. But that doesn't make a build good. That just makes you a good roamer. So, yeah, bottom of B tier probably. We're missing I think that's 9? Yeah, that's 9 classes. All right, let's do Druid now. Top of A tier for sure. The disengage is insane. You can stealth. You've got 2 mobility weapons if you want. Not necessarily. You have super speed. You have stealth. I already said stealth, but you've got even more stealth because you can use it with CA and with your pet. You've got pretty good sustain, so it's good at surviving outnumbered, but also kill potential. Immobilize is the most rewarding condition in the entire World v World because you get kills with Immobilize. So even if you can't kill the target, you can help your team get kills. If you're getting chased by a group of players and one of them is a druid, you're dead. You're just dead. If they have ancient seeds, and they should have ancient seeds, you're just dead. You don't get out. So it's extremely rewarding, extremely survivable. It's God tier. And it's also, it scales up well in groups. I mean, you saw I could revive my allies, heal them. It's just so versatile, gets kills, survives, top of A tier. Why isn't it S tier? Because it doesn't do insane damage, necessarily. That's the only reason why it wouldn't be S tier. You got to be able to like get those kills quickly, or they just run away. It sounds like S, right? It sounds like S. But druids are kind of lacking in the quickness of their kills. And if you're in like a 1v2 situation and they're near their base, or if you're like 2v1ing someone and they're near their base, sure, you could immobilize them, but usually they can get to their base pretty quickly. So you need like burst damage to be like God tier, I think. Like a Sikkim Soul Beast just gets rewarded so fast. A druid gets rewarded usually, but if the situation is like you got to kill them within this window of time before their team arrives, like the whole thing is about playing around their team arriving, right? And if it takes a while to get the kill as a druid, which it usually does, especially when you're solo, then, you know, they just run to their team. So, yeah, it's good, but it's got counters. It's good, though. Did I say God tier? I think I said God tier about one of its things. About one of its characteristics. Maybe you need to not take things out of context there. Alright, so let's go with... Alright, we did Ranger. Let's do Daredevil. S tier. Is it S tier above Soul Beast? Or is it S tier below Soul Beast? So, as I said earlier, more aggressive builds are more rewarding. Daredevil is less aggressive than Soul Beast. You'll get less kills as a Daredevil than you will as a Soul Beast. But you'll survive more as a Daredevil than you will as Soul Beast. And Daredevil, if you don't already know, has permanent stealth options, even though they nerf Shadow Arts. I mean, they've got tons of initiative. They've got, you know, short bow, stealth, dash. So they're immune to immobilize, which is the strongest condition. And that's also what Soul Beast has, is immunity to immobilize. So you're noticing a pattern here. Immunity to immobilize is pretty good. I mean, Warrior kind of has that too. And then they have pretty good burst. But they usually take longer to get the kills because even though they have good burst, they don't have like huge DPS like a Soul Beast. So a lot of times they can get kills on targets if they're ganking them. But if you're like trying to kill a target solo as a thief, it takes a while and they can just run from you. So it's not as rewarding. But it is pretty rewarding because you just never die, right? I mean, we're comparing it to like S tiers, right? It's way more rewarding than these two, right? Alright, let's go with Engineer. Let's go with Scrapper. Scrapper is a lot of super speed. It's a lot of stability. And stability and super speed are good. The only issue with Scrapper is that it is very susceptible to conditions, even if you take tools, and is very susceptible to corrupts. So like if a Necro sees a Scrapper and you get corrupted, you're kind of dead. I mean, that's on a lot of things, right? It is on a lot of things. But the super speed is insanely good on Scrapper. It just has too many counters. So I think it's like bottom of A tier maybe. Or maybe top of B tier. Because, yeah, it just has too many things that counter it. For it to be like really high tier, it needs to not be countered. So like it's really good in some situations, but really bad in others. But it's usually really good. Yeah, probably top of B. And then we've got... So we did all the mediums. Let's do another light classer. Weaver. Weaver's interesting. So you've got Fresh Air Weaver. You've got Fire Weaver. And it's hard to like label... Because if I talk about Fresh Air Weaver, it's kind of like... It's like B tier maybe. It's pretty rewarding, but it's a free kill. But if you talk about Fire Weaver, it's like also B tier because it's not like, so Fire Weaver is not rewarding but doesn't die easily, and then Fresh Air Weaver is pretty rewarding but dies easily, and for both of those are kind of like B tier. So I guess it's B tier, right? Yeah, it's like B tier. I mean, it's very good in outnumbered situations for the Fire Weaver. You can definitely montage people, but here's the thing. When you're in a 1v3 as Fire Weaver, it's like perfect. When you're in a 1v5 as Fire Weaver, it gets out of hand too fast. Like you can't control that. And if you're like a Spellbreaker and you're in a 1v5, you just use full counter and then you're good to go. Fire Weaver gets overwhelmed by overwhelming numbers too fast. Whereas like if it's in like the perfect, if it's in the Goldilocks zone, it's like a godlike kind of like 1vx. But you gotta create that situation, and I mean, you see roaming, right? As soon as one person attacks you, you got like 5 people attacking you afterwards. So you need to have really good disengage. I mean, if you're a Fresh Air Weaver, they can't run away too easily, but they can kill you very easily. So, Necro? We did actually we did Scourge and Reaper. So let's do Guardian, Willbender, S tier, bottom of S tier. Rewarding, stability, removes immobilize pretty easily, gets to kill really fast, and it's fun. The only issue with Willbender is it's a little bit hard to play. If you're outnumbered, obviously you can disengage pretty easily. But I mean, yeah. I mean, the only issue with Willbender is it's countered by Soul Beast and Daredevil. Like all the S tier roamers get, like they counter Willbender. But Willbender is extremely good at roaming, not dueling. And often when you're dueling, often when you're roaming, you'll experience matchups. But generally, it's pretty good, yeah. I mean, there's even like bugs to make the Greatsword 3 is like insane damage. Yeah, pretty good. Has Condi Cleanse, has protection, some Aegis. I mean, it's pretty, yeah, it's pretty reliable. It's fast, it's fun. All right, let's go for Bladesworn, Berserker. Berserker, the Condi build is the only one I would play, but Rifle Berserker is a thing, but I'm not really gonna consider that too much because I would say that the rifle build is like maybe a C. Because it's pretty rewarding, right? It's pretty rewarding. It's unblockable burst, but well, I mean that's yeah, but you can't 1v1 anyone as a Rifle Berserker unless they have, you know, no idea what they're doing. But we are talking mostly about the Condi Berserker build. And I actually think it's pretty good. I think the Condi Berserker build is like pretty good. Like it has the same issues as Spellbreaker. When you get outnumbered, you stay outnumbered. But, and obviously it doesn't have full counter, but you have the new Headbutt gives you Endure Pain if you have Defense Straight Line. It does insane burst damage, a lot of CC. The only issue is you can't catch up to people. And you also will die when you're outnumbered pretty hard. So it's kind of like worse than Weaver, like Fire Weaver in that way. Like it's more aggressive than Fire Weaver. But Fire Weaver survives better. And I know I say that aggressive is better because it's more rewarding. So then maybe I should put it above Weaver. But I'm not considering just Fire Weaver. I'm also considering Fresh Air Weaver, which I think is higher B tier. So we're going to put Fresh Air Weaver like top of B tier and Fire Weaver bottom of B tier. But because of that, they kind of like go middle. So we'll put it above Berserker. And then we've got Mirage. Yeah, Mirage. Mirage is like, it's pretty difficult and punishing, I would say. Because you only got one dodge, but then you've got energy sigils. So yeah, in World vs. World it's really good. People complain about it in PvP, but it's pretty good in World vs. World. So it's like A. Or what are the builds? So there's the Power Mirage. Really fun build, really good long range damage with the Greatsword. It's got a lot of evades, a lot of invulnerability, isn't susceptible to Condis, isn't easily killed by CC. It is squishy though, so you have to play it well. It's high skill cap, but you're naming a bunch of stances. If you take Defiant stance and Defy Pain, then I mean you have no sustain, right? I mean, and also those stances you're naming are really bad in like small scale fights because you can just easily not hit into them. So in like larger fights, yeah, Defy Pain is really good, but in roaming, players can play around that easily. But yeah, I mean it's good still. It's good. It's, you know, it's B tier. Alright, so Mirage. So does it have disengage? It absolutely does. If you have a sword, you should. I mean, blink is good disengage. The ambushes do a lot of damage. The issue is, I'm thinking, like, is it good kill potential as Mirage? I think it is pretty good kill potential. But is it more... Like, it has better disengage than a Spellbreaker. But just by the fact that it can... Like, the whole thing about roaming is that you need to play opportunistically. And while on paper, Mesmer looks pretty bad, in actual play, if you play Mesmer well, you have the perfect tools to play opportunistically, and the utility of like a distortion stomp. For example, like you get into a situation where you get it down as a warrior. How are you going to stomp them? You need stability. I mean, you got to use your stability to get them down in the first place. Whereas Mesmer's is like, you know, I have all these tools. I can do like a stealth stomp, a distort stomp. You can revive your allies. So all the playmaking potential on Mesmer, I think, is so valuable that it's probably, you know, probably like above Spellbreaker. And it's not easily focused. You can kite pretty well. But it's harder to play. But we're not going to assume that hard to play means it's bad. Otherwise, Harbinger would be S tier. Speaking of which, Harbinger is like A+ tier. It is easy to focus, but when I say easy to focus, I mean like you have all the tools that Reaper has, right, to escape. You have stability, a little bit more stability access, because every time you go in Shroud, it's like one stability. That stability honestly carries Harbinger pretty hard. This is for World v World roaming. And is it better than Mirage? I'm gonna say it's not better than Mirage, but the ease at which you can kill things on a Harbinger is very rewarding. It's like you corrupt, yeah, you have corrupts, which kills a lot of things. So it's like the best thing for getting kills on something that's just unkillable. But it is pretty susceptible to like Sikkim Rangers, top tier. It is susceptible to getting ganked by thieves, yeah. And it is susceptible to Willbenders as well, who will gank them. So it's like prey to a lot of the top tier if they get ganked. But in 1v1, it would probably like beat all of these guys 1v1. Except not everything roaming is a 1v1, so it's really high value, but it doesn't scale up too well. It scales down very well. So it's like, you know, is it better than Spellbreaker though? I mean, Spellbreaker would lose 1v1. Is Catalyst even better than... yeah, Catalyst has team play. Harbinger does too, though. Harbinger gives quickness to its allies. Harbinger is busted. And it's easy to play. Which I know I said didn't really matter too much. But we'll just leave it there. Alright, let's do another rev. Herald? Very bad disengage. It has the port, though, to neutral mobs, which is decent disengage, but you'll get interrupted usually by someone interrupting you randomly. It's got really rewarding kill potential, to be honest. Like, honestly, probably top of B tier because it's so rewarding, but... It's so weak to CC. It doesn't have good cleanse. It's weak to Condis, weak to CC. Same thing as Scrapper, right? Except Scrapper has stability. Yeah. So we'll put it near the top of B tier. It's next to Renegade. Renegade and Herald are the same, I guess. They have different weaknesses though. It's pretty similar. Alright, let's do... Did we do Deadeye? Deadeye. Deadeye is pretty interesting. It's like S tier in terms of rewarding, because you have range damage. Oh, by the way, Harbinger is range damage. That's why it's really good. It's ranged. Yeah, Deadeye is ranged as well, so it's really rewarding. Like all these classes are like melee potential, but here's the thing. It's only ranged. Like if you want to do melee as a Deadeye, you can, but it's like not a lot of your traits are just going to stop working if you go to a melee set. So you really need to like camp rifle, and as soon as you get countered by projectile reflect, you're done for as a Deadeye. So it's really not the best, but it's extremely rewarding for sure. And you have like tons of disengage. Like it looks like an S tier class on paper, but then when you see everyone's running projectile reflect, or they have like, you know, reveal for you, because you rely on reveal more so than you do on Daredevil. So it's pretty good, but it's got counters to it. And, you know, if it's got counters to it, then not really that much S tier. And I know you're going to be like, but you said Willbender has counters. Okay, buddy. Calm down. Don't take it too literally. So, is it better than Mirage? Is it better than... Yeah, it's pretty high. It's pretty high A tier. It's pretty high A tier. Alright, did we do... What are we missing here? Wait. We did 2 Rangers, 2 Revs, 2 Mesmers, 2 NGs. I guess we're on the last set now. Tempest. Selly Tempest is like, I think Selly Tempest is like S tier for new players. It's not rewarding to play, but you will never die on that. So it's like S tier in defense, but it's like D tier in terms of getting kills. So I'm gonna put it C tier. I'm a little bit biased because I love to play on Tempest, but support Tempest is also really good if you're gonna roam as a support, but that's a yikes. I think Tempest is better than Firebrand is what I'm trying to say though, if you're gonna roam. Yeah. I mean, what is its disengage? You have Fiery Greatsword. That's pretty much it. Fiery Greatsword. If you're running Dagger with the Selly build, you do have the Air 4. The overloads are so slow, and they're backloaded. So as soon as someone sees you're overloading, they just move away. So it's bad for getting kills. Because you have long cast times, you're susceptible to CC. Though you do have a bit of stability. I mean, yeah, I mean Tempest and Firebrand are good supports, but like as soon as you get in a situation where you're trying to get kills, they're not as good. So I'm like, always supports are going to be good if you don't have one already, but stacking supports is not really good. So like we're saying like support classes are not amazing just because we're trying to like say like 1 to 3 man roaming here. But yeah, I mean it is really good to have a Tempest in a group, but we're just, I don't know. The way that tier lists work is they're not a really good accurate way of like of organizing like value, and this is why I don't do tier lists. And because of this, like the Tempest doesn't belong in the C tier, but I have to put it there, otherwise it's an anomaly. But it is what it is. Hollowsmith. Hollowsmith is not CC. It's weak to Condis, I think. You have the cleansing sigil. I mean, I guess if you're running tools, yeah, you have good Condi cleanse now. You have the cleansing sigil. You have when leaving Forge as well, so it's pretty decent Condi cleanse now. It's weak to CC for sure, though. It is weak to CC. And it has good disengage. But I think it's pretty easy to focus a Holosmith. But at the same time, Holosmiths are really good at getting kills. And the fact that Engineer is a really good versatile class, I think it's pretty good. Doesn't have stability like Warriors. I mean, it does have some stability with the Elixir U. We're talking about Nade Hollow or Tools Rifle Hollow, I guess, or Tools Sword Shield Hollow. It's hard to say because it's very versatile, which is like giving me higher tier here. I'm gonna say it's like pretty high. Like it's pretty versatile, but how good is Hollow at 1v1ing? I mean, because like I think of all these classes, Druid would beat a Hollow, wouldn't it? Deadeye would beat a Hollow, maybe. Catalyst would beat a Hollow. Barrage counters Hollow. Harbinger would beat a Hollow. Spellbreaker is kind of the counter to Hollow, so it has counters. Yeah, that's the issue. Holosmith has counters, and these other classes are not really countered as easily. I mean, it would probably be Willbender 1v1, but yeah, we're talking about duels, so. All of B farms Hollow? I don't know about that. Does the Hollow beat Rev? I think so. I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's definitely A tier. I mean, obviously the matchups are not too relevant. I mean, it is relevant a little bit, but it's not everything. We're taking into account like a lot of anecdotes and stuff like that as well. Probably bottom of A tier. Am I excluding Selly builds? No, I'm assuming this is Selly Renegade, yeah. Just because something is annoying doesn't mean it's the best. It's good. I mean, all of the builds that we're showing here are good builds. We're instantiating them on good builds so that their class is represented well. But still, you have to say which one is better, because that's the point of the list. If everything is S tier, then what's the point of making the list? All right. Vindicator is D tier. Just kidding. It's like A. It's not weak to CC. It has plenty of cleanse. We're talking about Salvation Renegade here, or Vindicator. I mean, I play Devastation, and it feels A tier to me as well as Devastation, because you just have so much damage. But what are its weaknesses? The weakness is still somewhat CC. It's the least weak to CC out of all the rev specs. So one of its weaknesses is countered. Also, the weakness to Condis is countered because of the tree life, the tree song. And if you're using Salvation on dodge, you get cleanse. So it counters all of the weaknesses of rev. So it's definitely higher than the other revs. But it has the same kind of like benefits of rev. So it's just rev, but not as easy to counter. So is that better than Mirage? Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's definitely better than Spellbreaker because it has the port, which is more kill potential. It's definitely worse than Deadeye because it doesn't have the hard disengage. I I think it's lower than Mirage then. But like in terms of raw power, it's like way more raw power than Mirage. It's sort of like similar to Harbinger, but like less weaknesses. So we'll put it there. DH. DH is actually really good, actually. I want to put it in like A tier because True Shot is godlike. So it's really good at getting kills. Extremely good at getting kills because the True Shot is ranged. You have the pull, which as soon as you get pulled, if you're outnumbered and a DH tethers you, you're just dead. Pretty much. So it's extremely rewarding to play. It has the F2 for the leap to get out of immobilize, which is pretty good. It's got the F3. It's pretty rewarding. I mean, I'm going to say DH is pretty high. Like bottom of A tier. Which is, it's not the worst A tier, but it is the bottom of A tier. It's like so rewarding to play DH because you get kills left and right. And even it is pretty hard to kill, I'm going to say. It is pretty hard to kill. You got the F3 twice and you're invuln. You have a long time before you can kill a DH. They have a lot of CC. It's not necessarily weak to Condis, but it could be. But it is squishy. DH is really squishy if you're not managing your cooldowns. And that means in outnumbered situations, you kind of die pretty fast outnumbered as a DH. Better than Hollow? I think it's better than Hollow, yeah. Hollow might even lose to DH in a 1v1, to be honest. Depending on how tanky the Hollow is. I mean, obviously, the tankier you are, and that's another thing. If you're really tanky, and this is why we're actually going to put DH at the bottom of A tier, because DH is a burst class. If you run out of your damage, you don't get the kill. And if players are playing tanky builds, which they do, you don't kill things on a DH. So that's actually, yeah, that's sounding like B tier. Like when you're ganking someone, sure, you have plenty of damage. But when you're trying to get the kill yourself, you do True Shot, you do your pull combo, you push and pull. And if they play around that and they don't die, then they don't die. Period. You run out of damage. You run out of damage really fast on a DH. So, yeah, we're putting that in B. Yeah, like above Virtuoso, because it has the same issue as Virtuoso, yeah. Like that one issue, it's like that one issue is similar to Virtuoso as well. It's like really good, but that one issue is that you run out of steam, and then you can't do anything. Almost like a one-trick pony, yeah. Yeah, we'll put that B tier then. Bladesworn, I mean, we played this today. Good damage. Dies to immobilize. Can't escape. Easily CC'd. Weak to Condis. Burst damage is mitigated by weakness. You have ammo, so you run out of damage. It's got a lot of detractions. What's good about Bladesworn? What is good about Bladesworn? Let me know if you find anything good about Bladesworn, other than that it's fun to play. Unblindable, unblockable. It's pretty good. Is it worse than a Tempest? Yeah, it's 100% worse than a Tempest. Is it better than a Firebrand? I mean, it might even be worse than a Firebrand. I prefer to roam on a Firebrand than on a Bladesworn. At least on Firebrand, like the Selly Firebrand build, that's That's a good build. I mean, you die, but so does Bladestorm. I think it's worse than a Firebrand. Yeah, it's worse than Firebrand. It's below Firebrand. It's not that rewarding to get kills, right? Because you run out of ammo and you die too quickly. Yeah, it's just D tier. Even if they gave it stability back and allowed you to stow, I think it'd be good in PvP, but not World v World. Because the whole thing about Warrior is you have fast. You have fast hands on these two, and you don't have fast hands on this. So the whole immobilize thing even counters you harder. So Bladesworn is just shite. Spectre. It has mobility. It can disengage. Does it have good kill potential? It's okay kill potential. We're talking about Condi Spectre, because you would never play Power Spectre. It's still squishy though. It's still squishy on Condi. Because the nerf to the Shroud, which made Power unplayable. The Condis are, I mean, you can support your allies, which is nice. It's versatile. It's got mobility. Doesn't have good kill potential and doesn't have the best survivability, but it does have disengage. But the thing is, like, if anyone looks at you, you're not going to be able to disengage. Like, if a Sikkim Ranger just pops off on you, here's the thing that's been an issue with Spectre from the start, is when you're in trouble, you don't have any, like, oh shit buttons. Like, you can dodge, you can use, like, your sword 3, or you can use your sword 2 out. But those all have, like, kind of delays or don't really get you to a better positioning. And how people survived is they had a lot of Shroud. So they don't have that anymore. So when you're in trouble as a Spectre, you just get taxed so hard. But is it better than Firebrand? That's the real question. It has better disengage than both of these classes, to be honest. It's just squishier than both these classes, but it's a thief, so it has the benefit of being a thief. Is it better than Mechanist, though? I think it's better than Mechanist. Is it? Like, I'd rather roam on a Spectre than a Mechanist right now, but maybe that's just because I don't like Mechanist. And I'd rather roam on Tempest, but that's because I like Tempest. So, I don't know. I think the fact that it's a thief is just going to make it better. Just because thief is better roaming. We're just going to give it the thief aspect. Yeah, if you're running Shift Signet and Rocket Boots on Mechanist, then, I mean, that's fine and all, but then you're just running. I mean, I ran with Rocket Boots as well, so I know, but believe me, Mechanist is not that good anymore. Yeah, we're just gonna put it here. We're just gonna put it here. It's not better than Mechanist. This is way more mobility than a Mechanist. Trust me. Chronomancer. Chronomancer is really fun, but how do you disengage on a Chronomancer? You use Blink, and then you slowly walk away with your 25% movement speed. How do you get kills as a Chronomancer? Yeah, you have a lot of one-shot combos on Mesmer. It's one of the more aggressive builds. Is it better than Spectre, though? It's got worse disengage than Spectre, for sure. Is it better than Tempest? Even. It's so easy to focus a Chronomancer. So I'm thinking it's not. Yeah, stealth. I mean, that's true. I'm thinking of a Gravity Well build, though. Like, why would you play Chronomancer if you're taking the elite that gives you stealth? So, I mean, you might as well play Virtuoso or Mirage if you're running that. So, I mean, Chrono itself is just really weak. But it is a Mesmer, and Mesmers do have some stealth, and they do have pretty low cooldowns on their blinks. And I think they did buff. Yeah, they buffed Chrono recently. So I'm going to put it here because the Distort buff is pretty good. And there's a lot of different Chrono builds you can play, actually. You can play Condi Chrono, I think. I've definitely seen some good Condi Chrono play. But, in Outnumbered, yeah. Would you? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, it would be C. 25% speed? Yeah, we know about that. 25% speed is still worse than swiftness, which is like, swiftness isn't fast. It's the baseline. So if you're lower than the baseline, then that's not good. Alright, Untamed. Untamed is not good because it doesn't have Doliac Signet, or Doliac Stance. It does have good burst. It has the longbow. Why is it better in PvP than in World v World? Because there are not that many things that will kill your pet in PvP. So your pet dies really fast in World versus World, and the weakness of Untamed is that you have really no way to protect your pet. Like Druid and Soul Beast have pretty good ways to protect their pet. Untamed pet just dies. But is it a B or an A tier? I mean, you got the port, which is pretty good. You have decent Condi cleanse. I think you're still pretty weak to Condis. Soul Beast, is it weak to Condis? I mean, you're not running the Wilderness Survival build for sure, but you could. So you're just not tanky. Like Soul Beast is tankier than Untamed even. So let's compare it to other things like Renegade. Is Renegade better than Untamed? It's got range damage. It's got melee damage. Renegade is countered by projectiles, whereas Untamed is not necessarily because it has the melee. Selly Untamed? I mean, then that's not a very rewarding build because it's going to take forever to kill anything. But we're talking about like Hammer or Greatsword Longbow Untamed here because that's the best version. The most rewarding version as well. It's weak to Condis. Is it weak to CC? No. It's not weak to CC. Is it easily immobilized? Yeah, it kind of is. A little bit. You've got more like you don't. Oh no, you do. You do have the whenever you swap Untamed from yourself and the pet, you do remove Condis. So yeah, it's not that weak to Condis now that I think about it. Could be A tier. But is it better than Reaper? I mean, at this point, we have so many things down, we're comparing it to the other ones. It's kind of hard because it is a comparison. We have to compare it to the Hollowsmith. I'd rather have a Hollow than an Untamed. Untames are pretty slow in comparison. Is it better than Scrapper? It's pretty rewarding, right? What class should you make? Make a Ranger. Yeah, make a Ranger. Not because I'm talking about Ranger, but because, as you can see, Ranger's at the top of all the tiers here. Ranger's pretty good, yeah. I'd say it's top of B. Okay, not the top of B. in between Herald and Renegade, because Herald is more rewarding than Untamed. Untamed dies less than Herald, but aggression is more rewarding than survival. So we're gonna go with that. The only thing left is nothing. That's all of them. Yeah, there you go. That's the list.